manager here with my good friend Dick Boak, and this is part 4 of our interview. This has been fascinating so far, and as long as I've worked with Dick and been out with him and heard a lot of this stuff, there's new things that are coming up too, so that's pretty awesome.
We're talking about Tonewood, and this is a perfect follow-up to the Signature Model series, because in the Signature Models we explored a lot of new territory. The artists brought new ideas to the table, different sizes and shapes that Martin had not done for a while, and different tone woods, and a good amount of experimentation. And one of those projects with Lawrence Juber, former guitar player from Paul McCartney and Wings, 2-time Grammy Award winner,
Awesome.
and really one of the
One
of the best guitar players going. He wanted to do an orchestra model, which is kind of this, as you know, the sweet spot. Just a wonderful size, not too boomy, but still very balanced. And in a cutaway format, so an orchestra model cutaway with a long scale length, with an Adirondack spruce top. And the first model we did was a mahogany model, OMC 18 LJ, and it was magnificent. It was really, really great for stage, light as a feather. We decided to kind of do a tone experiment. We followed up with an East Indian rosewood model, which of course had a little bit of a warmer sound. And then we got a little carried away.
The 28 series, or?
It had herringbone.
Okay.
Herringbone, but very austere, not any fanciness to the guitar, just all about tone and performance. We did one in Brazilian rosewood, we did one in Madagascar rosewood, we did one in Guatemalan rosewood, we did one in flamed maple, we did one in Hawaiian koa, and then we did a second one in mahogany with moon spruce, or the high altitude Swiss spruce. And so many different projects with so many different tone woods, all within the same format. And this is really a perfect experiment for differentiating the tone, the impact that the different back and side woods have upon tone. And so, in a nutshell, what mahogany brings to the table is kind of a bright, crisp, clear, glassine, crystalline type of tonality to the guitar, light and weight. I call them potato chips, just an airy, breathy kind of sound.
Very much so. They cut through the mix very well.
Right, and people love them in the studio and on stage because they're not thick. They don't have a thick bass response.
Very articulate.
So, and my understanding in the studio is that it's easy to add bass, but it's very difficult to subtract it.
Yes.
So that's why the studio technicians love the mahogany sound. Now, conversely, people that would be writing songs in the living room or whatever, they might want, or vocal accompaniment, might want a warmer, richer. Really, what Martin is known for is the warmth of tone that you get out of an East Indian rosewood or a Brazilian rosewood, or any of the varieties of rosewood, which are much heavier woods. Yeah. That you pick up a rosewood guitar compared to a mahogany guitar, it's a very different thing. So the rosewood brings to the table a rich, warm, bassy, resonant, thick, dark tone. In the best of worlds, you'd get a little bit of the treble also.
I think the mahogany is a very balanced. I think with the rosewood, you get a little bit more of that bass in.
Yeah. So the criticism that rosewood sometimes get is that it's too bassy. And the criticism that mahogany sometimes gets is that it's too trebly. And what you're really after in a guitar is the union of the two. And that's why the orchestra model I think is so viable, because it's a small body. You don't get the boom
Right.
that you get out of a dreadnought, but you do get the equivalent balance between bass and treble. And then, maple is very hard. It doesn't have a lot of absorption.
It's very reflective.
Very reflective. In a critical way, people might say harsh about maple's tone, but in the best scenario, it's actually pushing the sound.
It does.
Out. And then koa wood falls between, almost right in the middle between rosewood and mahogany. So it has,
beautiful wood too.
on a dreadnought guitar, it has elements of bass and treble that maybe not as thick a bass as rosewood, and not as bright a treble as mahogany, but kind of in the middle. So it's kind of a great wood.
It sure is, and
So-
it looks gorgeous.
With Lawrence, we started joking because everybody had all these words: dark, rich, resonant, trebly, whatever. All these different words to describe tone. And Lawrence and I started to describe the guitars of the different woods in terms of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought mahogany is really a Chardonnay,
That makes sense.
kind of effervescent.
Sure.
And that the East Indian rosewood was kind of like a Merlot, and that the Brazilian rosewood was kind of like a fine Cabernet, and that the Guatemalan rosewood, which is like a Montepulciano, we got carried away. We got to maple, and the wine didn't seem to fit anymore, and we thought, well, it's really more like vodka.
Yeah.
Maybe Smirnoff or
Some
something.
liquor in there.
And the koa also didn't seem to fit any description, and we thought maybe that was like a single malt Scotch.
Perfect.
So isn't it interesting that a completely different thing could be used to describe tone and actually have people relate to that?
Sure. Because we all like to drink.
Which we will do later. So the interesting thing is that rosewood, if you look at the specific gravity of wood, and specific gravity refers to if you take a piece of wood and put it in water, or if you take a cubic foot of wood and compare it in weight to a cubic foot of water, you get a proportion. Like 0.58 would mean that it weighs a little less than half, a little more than half of what a cubic foot of water would weigh.
Okay.
So mahogany is a light wood, and it's in that range. Rosewood is a heavy wood, and it's 0.9 something. Ebony is almost 0.99,
It's real heavy.
and almost
It's a
6.
dense wood.
So if it's 1.0 or greater, it's 6 in water. So we look at rosewood as being in the heavy end of the spectrum in terms of specific gravity, and mahogany as being kind of a lighter wood, not light like balsa wood, but light for a hardwood. And if you look at the number of species between mahogany and rosewood, there are tens of thousands of species of wood, and so with all the problems that we're having with acquisition of the traditional tone woods,
All the guitar makers are.
I'm not too concerned about it because I think there are so many options for building guitars. Maybe you have to adjust the bracing, maybe you have to adjust the thickness a little bit, but there's so many different opportunities
To discover new tone woods.
viable opportunities. And it's true that some species are probably not very viable. Maybe they produce a muddy sound, or they don't have the right reflectivity or the right absorption that mahogany and rosewood have. But I think I don't think we need to worry too much about having wood to build guitars. It might change from the traditional, but at least there's lots of opportunities.
It's an opportunity for all the guitar builders to discover new woods, new tone woods that may have been overlooked in the past, or maybe not looked at at all.
Yeah, it's also curious as to why or how the traditional tone woods were even arrived at, whether it was strictly a matter of trial and error or aesthetics. But clearly, you know, the woods that we have landed upon, mahogany, koa, ebony, rosewood, spruce, is hard to beat.
They're hard to beat.
Right.
Yes, they
Well,
sure are.
But we're going to beat them.
Stay tuned for part 5 with my interview with Mr. Dick Boak.